And I'm letting everyone in.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone.
There we go.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you.
Good.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Happy to see so many smiling faces on a Wednesday. What's today? Tuesday afternoon.
Tuesday.
Welcome to the Reunion Project PLTHEP Town Hall Expansion Project info session for 2024. Happy to see so many people here. Here, we'll wait one more minute in case someone else comes in. Just FYI for everyone, this will be recorded and we'll be sharing this on our website for those who weren't able to make it. So if you have just heads up that this is being recorded. Yeah. Looks like we got a couple more people coming in. Let them come in and get settled. Right. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. I know people will be coming in, so we'll just quietly welcome them in as they enter. Just the FYI, for those who just joined, this is being recorded and will be shared on our website following this session. My name is Larry Bryant. I am the Senior Program Manager with the Reunion Project. If you're not familiar with the Reunion Project, and how could that be? The Reunion Project was founded in 2015 by long-term survivors of HIV. I'm sorry, I was reading chat. Survivors who recognize that this is an entire group of individuals who have survived the epidemic, but in so many ways have felt their stories, their experiences, their lives, their challenges, and their stories of survival have been forgotten, have been kind of left to the side. So TRP Reunion Project provides space for survivors and allies of those survivors, loved ones, to come together, honor the fact that they have weathered so much, including tremendous loss. But we're all here because of that resilience, because of our strength and power and will to live, and because we've connected with each other, sharing stories of survival, of how to heal, and through that sharing, we're hoping that we can help each other kind of with that support and healing as we continue to live and age and thrive with HIV. Next slide, please. So I'm going to now turn it over to Heather O'Connor, my coworker, who is going to talk about the Reunion Project 3 Pillars of Strength.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather O'Connor. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm the program coordinator for the Reunion Project. I come to this space as a woman living with HIV, and I'm so excited to be able to share a little bit more about our organization. If you're not familiar, we have 3 pillars of strength. The Reunion Project also ensures consistency within and across our local and national programs based on our
And I can't hear.
mission. Can you hear me? Can we hear well? Okay, I'm going to continue. Hopefully you can hear me. And the 3 pillars of strength that we identify are connecting, convening, and content curation. First of all, we are conveners. We bring together long-term survivors into a space to love on each other, to share our experiences, to gain knowledge. We also welcome allies alike, and we have a very inclusive view of long-term survivors, which we'll go into a little bit more in a moment. We are connectors. We develop relationships. We connect with folks in our communities, with supporting organizations. We build everlasting connections that last even beyond our encounters at the town hall, but actually begin in the beginning process of the planning throughout the event and then beyond that. We also are content creators. So we create content to be able to share with the rest of the community. We have our events live streamed normally to be able to share them with folks virtually who are not able to join us in person. And it's important for us to be able to create materials that are helpful to other long-term survivors to be able to have and to utilize and to share. And so about that inclusive definition of long-term survivors, we include long-term survivors of HIV, community allies and partners, and loved ones. Many people who identify as long-term survivors have been living with HIV for 10 years or more. That's just one definition that we have. Others feel that their long-term survival is shaped by the experience of living with HIV since the time that there was no effective treatment. Some feel that their long-term survival experience is marked by going through different eras of their life, perhaps from being young adults to now being elders while living with HIV. And some of our network members have been living with HIV since birth or early childhood, and they are known as lifetime survivors or dandelions. And we also welcome people who are not living with HIV to join our network or work groups as allies, and many of whom have been involved or affected by HIV. Right now, our coworker, Wahida Shabazz L, is on a wonderful vacation petting dolphins right now. But one of my favorite things that she has ever said to me is that the day she was diagnosed with HIV was the longest day of her life. And that's the day that she became a long-term survivor. And so it's just really important to us that we make sure that our space is open to all who want to be there. All right, next slide. Where have we been? We've been a lot of places. We've been to Atlanta, Baltimore, Birmingham, Charlotte, Florida, Houston, New Orleans, Palm Springs, Philadelphia, Seattle, Washington, D.C. Our last location was actually in Chicago, and that was the second time that we have been there for an in-person town hall. So it's sort of a revamped 2.0. We've reached over 1,700 participants who have attended town halls across the country, and that's not including folks who have engaged with us via our virtual events or the other folks who have hosted town halls through our first round of PLTHEP grants. There are multiple participants that attended those as well, and so that's not included, but that's just a general number for our in-person town halls. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to Larry.
On mute there. So yeah, so the town hall template. It's what we do. What the reunion project does is a 2-day format. What this proposal requires is not necessarily 2 days, but an experience for long-term survivors of HIV to connect with one another, to share stories, to connect to resources, or maybe it's to identify the primary or the priority issues in your community around sex and sexuality, around relationships, psychosocial or trauma-informed care. All these different things, what speak to the experiences of what long-time survivorship means in your communities. In some in some situations, it's about intergenerational communication. having young people living with HIV in the room with elders and developing a program that closes that gap of intergenerational communication and connection. Well, maybe we're talking about other communities that are hard to or difficult to provide services for, or there's a lack of services or lack of representation in that community. So maybe monolingual Spanish communities, transgender communities in rural areas, or just rural areas in general. So where there is a lack or uh, a dearth of resources in or communication or events and activities in your area that speaks to a certain community or wrapped around specific issues, think about those and think about how you can pour your energy and creativity into a proposal that then brings those communities, those individuals together. Some of the examples from our last uh, round, or our first round last year, next slide, please, includes uh, Possibilities from San Diego. And I think I saw Jerry. Yes, Jerry from Possibilities on the call now. Good to see you, Jerry. Sankofa HIV Initiative in Cleveland, Ohio, also developed a program that was wrapped around um, Black History Month, or at the tail end of Black History Month, and how it brought the dirt advocacy, as Brian Jones likes to talk about, below the grassroots. It spoke to people who were like on the ground, who do the hard work, who roll up their sleeves to seek services, to seek connection in their community in Ohio. Next slide. And we have the Candlestick House and Engagement Center, Indianapolis in Indiana, that provide kind of a multi-level experience with an in-person event along with a webinar as well to reach people who couldn't come to the in-person event. And then, of course, we had Instituto Ancla that developed a proposal that had an event in Puerto Rico. And to talk a little about her experience in developing the proposal and the event itself, we've invited Rosa Martinez to share her experiences of what it was like to develop the proposal, some of the challenges that you faced, and certainly more of the successes, and tell some of the most, I guess, important elements of the planning, of the timeline, and how important having language accessibility meant for many of the participants who didn't speak English.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Rosa Martinez Colon, and I am the founder of Instituto Ancla. Currently, I am the Vice President of Housing Strategy at the Center for Housing and Health at AIDS Foundation Chicago. But while I was with Instituto Ancla last year, we were fortunate enough to submit a proposal and be funded for this event that we had in Puerto Rico on December 8th. One of the things that we did was partner with local organizations. Instituto Ancla was born in Puerto Rico, but we moved our operations to Chicago. So when the opportunity came, we went back to an organization that we have worked with in the past. It's called PACTA, and they are in the Arecibo region. So for those of you that are not familiar with Puerto Rico, the bulk of the services tend to be in the metropolitan area. And so for me, it was important to bring these services and these opportunities to areas where there's not much going on. Puerto Rico doesn't have a great transportation system. So even if events are being held in the metropolitan area, you have no way to get there unless you have transportation. So that was key for us. And we focused on the Arecibo region, which encompasses 12 different municipalities. Again, not much services going on there. So we work with this organization. They have experience with the population that, long-term survivors of HIV, and they already knew what their needs were. So that's why we were able to really target and identify which the topics that we were going to be covering during the day. And we balanced it. We balanced it with great information that is up to date, but we also wanted to have fun too. We wanted people to get together, to connect with each other. So we incorporated both aspects. We had a great doctor in Puerto Rico, Lisette Santiago, and she gave information focused on making sure that clients are partners in healthcare. It's not that you go there and the doctor tells you this is what you have to do and that's it. No, she provided great information on that. And then we had other activities like a psychologist that she works in art therapy. And so she had a presentation on the healing power of drums. So participants had different instruments, rattles and all that. So it was very, very interactive. And we also brought in somebody from AARP that he presented a very interesting and interactive topic about reimagining your future. That's something that is very important because, those of us that are long-term survivors, sometimes we face like, what am I gonna do next? What does my future look like? And that really provided great information and tools that people were able to use, in their lives. So I think that again that part was important to me because in my experience when I have met with other long-term survivors, they tell me we don't want to hear the same thing. We want to do other things. We want to really connect with people. So we made sure that we had that, and throughout the event we also had some activities like icebreakers, like meet your neighbor, and they were able to connect and create friendships that they didn't have before. So they have continued. My understanding is that they created a WhatsApp group. WhatsApp is very popular in Puerto Rico, and they have kept in contact like that. They loved it. Again, there's not much going on in that area, and they are asking, when are you coming back? Unfortunately, there's not a lot of funding for this, but I think that if I were to say something, is making sure that you're really targeting those that really don't have access to services or to opportunities like this one. I think that that's key and essential if we continue to bring, again, the message out there that there's a lot that still needs to be done, but we have to continue celebrating what we have done so far. So.
Yes, thank you so much, Rosa. And I love the idea of creating a program, a template, an event that engages long-term survivors of HIV in a particular region. And its success then breeds kind of copycats, if you will, because other organizations, other community partners will see that, hey, this is a much needed conversation to be had. This is a group of people that we need to start prioritizing engagement. How can we do what you just did? So it helps kind of set a template and a rhythm in that community that may not exist at this point. So I love the idea of kind of being a trend center in those communities. And I wish when I was diagnosed a while back, 39 years positive for me, that there were events like this, like kind of community-based, that spoke to my experience and was a peer-led experience as well. So thank you for sharing your experience. And I hope you can hang around because I think some of our participants may have questions for you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something else. I
Yes.
think that we made sure that we had long-term survivors participates as presenters, and they also led one of the sessions that we had. So I think that that's key to make sure that they are part of the whole process. We also thought that we were going to have a 2-day event, but then that was miscommunication. And then we said, oh, well, we're not going to be able to have people 2 days. They were asking for the second day. They really wanted a second day of activity. So, ask the participants. They will be able to tell you what is it that they need. Involve them in the process.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosa. And again, if anyone has questions for Rosa or the process, and maybe just you have in your mind what your proposal is going to look like, and maybe with Rosa's experience, she could answer some of your questions, please do so. You can put it in the chat, or you can ask towards the end of this webinar. And most importantly, Rosa, I know you talked about just how, being able to reach out to participants but also having that outcome being something you could measure, right? So it's not just we all get together and have a party, but it's done in a thoughtful, meaningful kind of planning process that then kind of produces these measurable outcomes that not just you and your organization can build off of, but other community partners can do that. So giving a little more detail to what comes with the grant and how to develop those measurements and evaluation, I'm going to bring in Jeff, the Reunion Project Executive Director, to introduce himself and talk us through the grant details. There he is.
Thank you, Larry. Hi, everyone. As Larry mentioned, my name is Jeff Berry. I'm Executive Director of the Reunion Project, and I use he, him pronouns, and I'm really, really happy to be here today. Just hearing Rosa talk has gotten me all inspired again for this next round. As you may have noticed in the flyers and the descriptions from previous 4 events that were in the first round, these were all very different programs, and I think that's what's really fantastic about this, is because we have a model, but we encourage communities to develop their own model that's going to be most impactful for them. And I feel like this is probably one of the most impactful things that the Reunion Project does, is this grant opportunity. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this, and then we'll open it up for questions at the end. So the announcement came out recently on Long-Term Survivors Awareness Day, June 5th. We have 4 mini grants of up to $4,000 each for individuals or organizations to develop their own peer-led event in their community. And we are able to provide some in-kind support in addition to that. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Next slide. And I know there's there's a question in the comments, so we'll have a link to this full proposal at the end, and we'll put it in the chat as well. So I'm just going to cover some of the highlights from the proposal. So eligibility requirements: you must be a 501c3, or if you're not, if you're an individual, if you're an advocacy group that maybe doesn't have a 501c3 and you have a fiscal sponsor, you will need to include a letter of support from the 501c3 organization, and the funds will go directly to that organization to be dispersed. You must have experience working with people living with HIV and or long-term survivors of the HIV epidemic. You must be able to demonstrate your ability to organize and host a successful peer-led community event in your region. And you must have a proposed budget for the or use of the awarded funds. And so we'll talk about that a little bit too. And this grant, unfortunately, is only open to organizations in the US or Puerto Rico. We've already gotten some requests from outside the US. Unfortunately, we are unable to accommodate those requests. Next slide. So getting into some more of the details, we do ask that all proposals be submitted in English. As Rosa showed, the event itself can be in a different language, but the application, we need it to be in English. A cover letter should be included, including the name of your organization, your address, contact person, contact information. And this doesn't need to be a book, right? So we're trying to make it simple for folks. The project proposal should be no longer than 3 pages. And that will include all of these items listed here. And included with those, we would ask for a list of previous projects or events or initiatives related to HIV/AIDS or long-term survivors that you have implemented or participated in. Next slide. So this is just an example of a budget. And in addition to a budget, we do ask that you include a budget justification. So what is a budget justification? So it's not a line item. We're not asking for a line item for each item in your budget. You can provide that, but we also want a justification. So how are you going to use the money you're asking for? Why are you asking for this? And how are you going to use it? And why are they necessary? And what will be accomplished? So, so that's part of the budget process, is the budget justification. So this slide is not talking about evaluations, which are also, we do have a template that we can send you, that we will send recipients for the questions that we ask in a typical evaluation that people who attend the event will fill out, and to get that information on how you did and how we could do better. But this is how we're going to evaluate your proposal. So we will they'll be on the following criteria: alignment with the mission and values of the Reunion Project, showing a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, the feasibility of your proposed project, clarity and completeness of the proposal, creativity and innovation of proposed activities, budget justification, which I just talked about, and accountability, and your experience and track record in implementing projects related to HIV/AIDS or long-term survivors of the HIV epidemic. So these are the things that we'll be looking at. So be sure to try to include the this information in your proposal, because it will be judged on these criteria here. Next slide. So again, we'll put a link in the chat to this application, but you can send your proposal in an email, or there's also a upload link on the Google form that we've created to make it easier if you want to use that. But if the proposals must be received no later than 5 Eastern on Monday, July 29th. So late submissions, unfortunately, will not be considered. And then we may contact you for additional information or to schedule an interview following your submission. And again, if you're submitting as an individual, just make sure that you include a letter of support from a 501c3, because funds will be dispersed to that same organization. There's the bit.ly to apply, and that will be in the chat. And then we'll send all of these slides to people who registered following this webinar, and you'll have the link and where to apply again there. Next slide. So important days to remember. So the first one has passed, and then that was when we announced it on Long-Term Survivors Awareness Day. And then Monday, July 29th, as I mentioned, is the deadline. And please make sure it's in by 5 o'clock Eastern. And then Friday, August 30th, grant awardees will be notified. So this will give us time to, our review panel will go over the applications. This will be a group of folks who volunteered from the community to review. It's similar to the process we used last year, and it will include some Reunion Project staff as well in that committee. And then we take all of the applications, we use a matrix that we score by, and then we tally our results. And then, yeah, go back, just make sure I got everything on that side. If you need more information, you can contact us at info@reunionproject.net. Once we award and notify you of your award on the 30th, it'll include instructions on how to accept the award and terms and conditions for accepting that award. So that is all I have. Any questions on that, or just in the process in general, or if anyone has any questions of any of the folks here at the Reunion Project, or Rosa, who was, I think Rosa's still on the call, or any other folks who participated in the last round. If they're here on this call, if you want to answer any questions, or if you want to say anything, now is the time. So these are some questions that we've been asked. So I'm just going to quickly go through these, and then we'll open it up to folks if you have any additional questions. So Can this proposed event be virtual? So this is designed for an in-person event. If you want to make it a hybrid event, which means like you would be simulcasting, live streaming, and at the same time as you're having the in-person event. We did have one, I think at least one group did that in the last round. Candlestick from Indianapolis, they had a Zoom link that people could view it from remotely and participate that way. But we do ask that it be an in-person event. So this is not just for a webinar or a longer, virtual meeting. This is for an in-person, designed for an in-person event, primarily. Can we submit a proposal through a fiscal agent? Yes. As I mentioned, that is certainly one of the eligibility criteria that you can submit through fiscal agent. If you're not a 501c3 and you have a fiscal sponsor, so then the fiscal sponsor, you would just note that, and you need a letter of support from your fiscal sponsor. How will the Reunion Project assist with development and planning? So I think this is kind of on a case-by-case basis. So once folks have been awarded, the 4 awardees we'll be scheduling a meeting with each awardee, and we'll go through some of the information about getting the funds and the grant period, which is September 1st through 2024 through April 30th of 2025. I don't think we included that in a slide. It's in the RFP. And so that's the grant period. You have 8 months to actually execute the program. Many of ours did that way before that. So, and then a final report will be due on May 15th of 2025. So again, it would be on a case-by-case basis. Some folks needed more support than others, which is fine. Whatever we can do, a lot of it will depend upon our capacity. And we would just ask if we get plenty of advance plenty of advance notification of any kind of support you'd need. And that would just ensure that we'll be able to give as much support as possible if we have plenty of advance notice on that. And Larry, did you want to take the rest of the questions?
Sure. Actually, I was collecting the questions in the chat.
Oh. I can continue if you want, and then we can go to the chat. Okay. So should our proposal activity include topics related to HIV and aging? Yes. So that is definitely, we are funded under our primary funding stream for this program is through Gilead's HIV AIDS Positively initiative. And so, yes, we do ask that this be related to HIV and aging. We always include at least one HIV and aging presentation in all of our town halls that we do around the country. So yeah, if you have any questions on that, just let us know. If you've already hosted a 2-day town hall, are you eligible? So this will be taken on a case-by-case basis. The idea behind this initiative, as we conceived of it, was to broaden our reach and expand our network beyond the places that we've already touched, and that we've already established programs and events and kind of a local network. So these peer-led mini grants are for smaller events to even broaden that network. However, we do realize that some regions are very large, and there may be a different population that we haven't reached before, that would make it possible for us to consider going into the same region for a program that's going to reach a different population. So, for example, so that might be one reason why we might allow that. So again, it'll just be a case-by-case basis, but we're not saying no, do not apply, but priority will be given to folks who have not had an event in their area. And then, can our event occur in a language other than English? Yes, as Rosa, talked about her program there, Instituto Ancla, it was entirely in Spanish. It's one of the things I'm most proud of, that we were able to help facilitate a program in a different language other than English that, helped to bridge that divide that so often it's really difficult to be able to do that. So again, I think the impact that these just these small mini grants has afforded us is really powerful to see and to experience, and we're just really thrilled with the last round, and very much looking forward to this next round.
Absolutely.
And that's all I got. Do you have any other questions in the chat, Larry? Do we want to go to that? Or?
Yes, we do. I think some of them have been answered, but I'll go down the list. So Joey asked, is there a list of previous town hall events? Yes, so we saw that. And I realized some people joined late and may not have seen the earlier slides. So I'll remind everyone that we will send out a copy of both the slides, the recording, along with the detailed information of the RFP. So that will be coming. And then, of course, Jeff just answered the question. Joey goes on, are we still eligible if there was already a town hall in our state? And can it be hybrid with digital? Oh, what happened? With digital as well as the event. So we answered that. Dee Dee asked, how much is the grant award? I don't know if you mentioned the specific amount, Jeff.
Yeah, there's 4 awards up to $4,000 each.
Okay. All right. Oh yeah, and Vernon answers that a little bit below. Victor asks, if we opt to a hybrid format, can some of the award funds be utilized for equipment procurement?
Equipment to purchase?
I'm not sure. I'm guessing cameras and recording equipment. A lot of this can be done honestly with a laptop and Zoom. Or if you have Facebook Live, some access to that. It doesn't you don't need to like get an entire sound truck, sound system for it. But yeah, and then of course, thinking about your budget, it's a relatively limited budget, so I would suggest the affordable options in regards to recording. But we can, this is part of the support that we can provide as far as just showing like how we've done it in the past and what options are best available for you, considering your community partners, your space, and who you're trying to reach. Did you want to add any more to that, Joe?
No, that was great.
And let's see, Victor asks, are there any restrictions on how the funds can be utilized for the event? For example, if I want to provide food and entertainment, for example, is that allowed?
Yeah, I think, again, all of these things would really be what you would want to include in a budget justification. So making the strong argument for why you feel that would be the best expenditure, and to highlight that, and why that's going to provide the most impact for those attending. For it's maybe it's the catering that you have people lined up who can speak, and you have other ways to fund them, or they're volunteering to do it or whatever, so you want to make sure you have a good spread for people to come and be able to attend during the day. So yeah, again, I think it's just that's something that you could explain in your budget justification. So people have used it for catering, and they've used it for prizes. You just don't want to go like way out of whack, and like 75% of your budget is for swag and gift cards, because that's probably not gonna it's gonna be difficult to justify that. in a budget.
And with any budget justification as well, it's like, what do you absolutely need to have a successful event? What don't you absolutely need to have a successful event, and being able to kind of measure out those two. So follow up on that, Joey asked, can a small portion of the funds be allocated for Lyft or Uber to assist with transportation barriers? And yes, that's one of those things that when you develop your budget and look at your outreach plan, who you're reaching out, who you expect to come, if that makes sense to budget or allocate some of the funds for transportation or to prevent or eliminate some of those barriers, please do that. That's also a place where if you think creatively about community partners and who's already doing the thing you need in your community, that could also elevate their kind of profile of collaboration. And maybe there's bands and other services that already exist that you can tap into as well. Let's see. Next question. Okay, Juan asks, what is the grant funding cap?
Yeah, I think we already answered that. So
Yeah.
it's 4,000. But
And then Victor asks again, can we provide honorariums for speakers? I think we've probably answered that too.
that would be it. Just in case it wasn't clear, that's a yes.
Yes. You can, and it is a yes, but I also want to add that I know a lot of us want to be and should be compensated for the work that we do, particularly people who are living and aging with HIV. Sharing your stories is hard work for us, and it can be a level of revisiting trauma when you do so. So compensation and honorariums are I wouldn't argue against them, but I would also just, when you have those conversations with community partners, there are some aspects of your budget allocation and parts of your program that can be, provided on a volunteer basis, especially from organizations who can provide resources to help with some of the things that the grant doesn't cover, for example. And then the last question from Stephen, well, not the last question, but from Stephen, should we provide an overall budget for the event or only for the specific items we anticipate using grant funds for?
I would leave that up to you. We definitely would need it for the funds that we're dispersing. If you think it's helpful for us to see the overall budget, many of our grantees, well, some of them anyway, we're only talking about 4. So, but they did secure other funding and in-kind support from other places as well, because that's just going to add to what they can offer. And so we understand that. We're not saying no, but if you feel like it would be helpful for us to see the overall budget compared to what you're asking for, sure, include it, but it's not required.
Yeah. I just wanted to say or shout out Rosa. Rosa has to leave, but if anyone has any questions for her regarding her proposal submission experience, developing the event, anything you have that's related to the event or the event planning, she put her email in the chat. Thank you, Rosa, so much. It was great kind of revisiting that event again.
Thank you, Rosa.
We have a hand up from Denise.
Hi, I have more of a physical question. So if you're individual and you're having a nonprofit to sponsor, with the letter of support, and then the funding will be submitted to that entity, right? So how does the checks come? Is this like a once a month check will be distributed to the awardee? Part 2 of that question, once they receive that funding, is there a responsibility to show documentation on what you spent the money for each month? Like, how will that flow? Is it a invoice afterwards or wait for the money first? Do you know how that would be if you're trying to have an event within that time frame?
Yeah, thanks, Denise. That's a great question. So I think we were able to disperse funds pretty quickly once we had all the documents from folks. And so like within a matter of weeks, and it was dispersed in the full amount to the organization. And I think it's then incumbent upon any 501c3 to make sure that those funds are, spent in a judicious manner. And so, that will be part of their task, and I'm sure everyone understands that. And so, and I would imagine that the invoices, you would have to speak to each individual. If you're not a 501c3, for example, and you're working with one, then you would have to just work out that process with them. But the invoicing would go through the 501c3, not us, because we disperse all the funds at once up front.
Okay, that was the question. I wanted to know if the funding, because I work in the finance department in that arena, and some grants.
Oh, I know.
You spend your money first.
Right. No, we're not going to do that to you.
Or to get reimbursed. So that's what I was trying to figure out. Like, is this the same type of grant?
Sure.
But I think what I hear you saying is
not a
that
government contract.
Okay, cool. So the person would get the money and then you just be responsible for allocating it according to the budget.
Yeah, the organization would get the funds, right? Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for that question, Denise. Any other questions? Okay, so it looks like we don't have any more questions.
One last question, if you don't mind.
Yes, Victor, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So let's project forward. The funds are allocated. So once they're in the account of the non-for-profit or the 501c, we have to just put the requisitional request for fund utilization from them into them. And then how do they report back to you? Or is there a reporting step to justify how the funds were used and if they fit within the parameters of allowability or what's allowed? How is that done? Is it me or is it incumbent on them to report back? How do they fit within that process?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. So it's the organization applying, then they will be creating the report. If it's an individual who's the working with an organization, then
Yeah.
I imagine you would work together with the organization to draft that report and then submit it back.
Okay, so in the report, we would detail out how the funds were dispersed and how they were utilized. Would you need like a video component to validate, that the event was held, or is it the report suffices?
Yeah, I mean, whatever you can share is helpful for us, because we do like to share that, like for instance on this webinar or in any of our promotional materials. So like flyers, agendas, and if you have recordings and photos, photos especially, would love to have some kind of digital record of the event so that we can share that and again, just show the impact that these funds are having with various communities around the country. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
I mean, the report is more of a narrative. So we're not, asking for like a real, line by line item, of your budget and like how it's spent. I mean, that's obviously you want to be able to show that you use the funds for the intent that, the purpose that they were intended for. But beyond that, we're not going to make it so laborious. We're really interested in the event itself.
So any money is undispersed returned back, or how would that work?
Yeah, we would hope that, you don't have that situation.
Yeah.
No, I guess we'd have to, if we come to that, we would make that determination. But
Got it,
yeah, I
got it.
mean, ultimately, yeah, but I don't imagine you'll have that problem.
Me either. Has
We don't know how
Washington,
much food costs.
has Seattle been represented in any of the recent because I didn't want to duplicate it. There's someone else
Seattle was one
already.
of our first, yeah. In the first few years, we were founded 9 years ago, so
Yeah.
Seattle was in the first couple of years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I moved from New York to Seattle, so I'm going to represent out here. So I didn't want to inch nobody out, which I'm competitive, so it's all good, So we're going to make it happen. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. So we have a couple of hands up here. First, Chris Reynolds, and then Josh.
Thank you. So my question is, one, thank you again for doing this again this year. So we applied last year, but we did not get the award. But for those that did apply that may not have been chosen, was there any notes that would be provided to say, this is what could make the application better, or like any critiques on the application? Because we're planning on applying again. So
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Chris. We need to build that into our program going forward. So let me think about that. Like if there's anything that we can share from the last experience, but yeah, we just had so many really good submissions. That was the problem.
right. And then my second part to my question is you said that the application, of course, is a total of 3 pages. But you also wanted for us, if we have any events that we've recently done or something that would tie into this, to include that. Is that to be included within that 3 pages then?
Yeah,
Or
if
is
you
that
need
to be
to,
added as an
if you need to
addendum?
do the list. Sorry. Yeah, if you need to do the list separately, you could do that. And the cover letter. So the 3 pages is really going to be the narrative and the budget.
All right, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
Glad you're.
Chris. Yes, and now it's Josh with the question.
Hi, yes, I was just wondering if there's a specific time frame that this needs to be completed by, like the event to be done by the end of the year, or what kind of time frame are we looking at to make it happen?
Yeah, sure, Josh. Thanks. Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, we didn't have it in the slide, but the grant period would begin September 1st through April 30th of 2025. So that's about 8 months, I think. And then the final grant report would be due May 15th. So about 2 weeks after that.
Good. Did that answer your question, Josh? Sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I see Vernon, you have your hand up? It's old fashioned. Raise your hand.
You're muted, Vernon.
Back up. There you go.
There you go.
Okay, now I am so glad to join this group. I missed the last meeting. Wahidra is a very good friend of mine, and she recommended this session to me. I been involved and been living with the virus for about 35 years or more, and I welcome the opportunity to participate in activities such as this. One of the things I've been trying to do in the last couple of weeks was get a group of people together to try to form a heterosexual support groups, because here in my area, Philadelphia, we don't have any. We have a lot of other support groups, and I just want to reach out to those people who are on this network, that I invite some help. I'm looking for some support or some networking or anything that can contribute to helping us get a support group together and be a productive member of our community. Uh, and and that's what I want to put out there. I will put my email address for those that don't have it on here so that you can see it. But I appreciate you all. Continue to do the good work, and I'll be back.
Thank you so much, Vernon, for that. And we'll tell Wahida you said hi.
Yes.
Thank you. And there, I
Any?
don't know if you want to mention, we have a webinar coming up, so Vernon,
Yes.
might be, we can send you information about that if you're not aware already. There it is. There's a link in the chat. Thanks, Heather. Yeah, so if there's not any other questions, I'm just, again, thank you everyone for your interest and for staying on, and best of luck in if you're applying and your applications, and we really look forward to reviewing them. And thanks again for all of your interest, and we're just really thrilled to be able to offer this opportunity.
So real quick, someone asked if the chat can be shared, and I'm guessing because of the contact info and just so much of the stuff that's being shared in the chat. I'm not sure how we would do that, Heather, or if we could do that.
Yeah, we can do that. I'll figure it out and I
Okay.
can share it with you. Absolutely.
So there you go, Victor.
You can save the chat by clicking those dots in the front.
No, yeah, I know I could save them, just how we would send it along with the video and everything, but we'll make sure it happens. Okay.
Great
Well,
webinar.
yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. If you have any questions, please reach us at info@reunionproject.net. We look forward to hearing from all of you, and hopefully we'll be reading all of your, if not some of your proposals in the next few weeks. So thank you so much for joining, and looking forward to hearing from you.
Have a great night, everyone. Thank you. Bye.